Thanks, Emily. Yes, Paul is a real expert in the refugee and hosting world and has worked in it for a number of years and has been really key in getting the Welcome Homes project up to speed to this point. So Paul, could you just tell us who NACCOM is and why you think there is a need for people to host at this time?
Okay, well, thank you very much for inviting me here tonight. I'm really excited by this initiative. It's really good to be here. I work for NACCOM, which is the No Accommodation Network. It was started back in 2006 by the founder of a charity in Manchester called Dave Smith. The charity was the Barrett's Trust. And Dave gathered together a group of 7 people who were predominantly Christian or church projects that were started to work with people seeking asylum that were left street homeless and destitute. And that network grew and eventually became a charity in its own right in 2015. And I had the privilege of being one of the founder board members. I used to work for one of the Christian charities that was involved with founding NACCOM. But I'm now a staff member. I'm a network development worker. So I help charities, churches, projects develop local and national kind of accommodation projects. We are an infrastructure organization. So we're approximately 140 members across the UK. We're in all parts of the UK, Scotland, Wales, England, Northern Ireland. And our full members are all delivering accommodation to people seeking asylum with no recourse. So many of those are hosting projects. So they include small local projects like Upbeat in Derby, who are on the call tonight, right up to sort of national charities such as Refugees at Home and specialist charities like Hope at Home, which is another Christian charity that works specifically with victims of human trafficking and modern slavery. So hosting's always been at the core of the kind of offer that many NACCOM projects provide. And NACCOM projects that are involved with hosting, they tend to have a focus on the individual that's claimed asylum in the UK, but has had a negative decision. And what we find is when people are either housed or hosted, is it roughly between 50 and 60% of original negative decisions can be overturned. And it's the basic principle that if you've got your basic needs met of food and accommodation, you're then able to focus on making informed choices for your future. So it's really important to have that safe place that, to stay while others are helping you to kind of regularize your immigration status. So there's an ongoing need. Our projects, a few of our projects are involved with Homes for Ukraine. So for example, Refugees at Home are. But many of the other projects, their core focus is people that are already here, that are already street homeless and destitute. And while the Homes for Ukraine project has raised the profile of hosting nationally, many of the established projects are struggling. They're struggling with host recruitment, host retention. And so there's a desperate need for new hosts who are prepared to welcome somebody into their homes. And also, a lot of our members are involved with housing as well. They're involved with providing longer term housing solutions, both for people seeking asylum and newly granted refugees.
Brilliant. I mean, we love the NACCOM, the network, and the way you bring very different groups and hosting organizations together and are able to sort of share best practice and help one another. It's a sort of big community across the UK. And Paul, I'm sure you've got hundreds of stories, but I'd love to hear 1 or 2 examples of how hosting, or what difference hosting has made in someone's life. If you could share, that'd be great.
Okay, yes. I mean, my own family have hosted on a number of occasions. So I'm going to tell you the story of a young woman from Pakistan. I'll call her Fatima. It's not her real name. And 10 years ago, she presented at my office at the time in Middlesbrough, very shy, very timid. She was 7 months pregnant. She'd been the victim of honor crime. She just had a negative decision from the Home Office. And she was destitute. The key had been taken off her. She had nowhere to go. She had spent all her life, she'd been under the control of men in her family. She was very, very nervous talking to me, but I managed to kind of bring somebody in the church, a female, came and joined me, and we actually set up a hosting placement for her, but then she was detained. She was detained pending deportation to Pakistan. And she was she was the only person of a group of 250 women who was removed from the flight, sent back to Darlington, and she came to live with my wife and my 4 daughters. And she arrived, she wanted to know where Mecca was, so we got the compass out. She was a religious Muslim, and she was so surprised that Christians could be so open and be prepared to help her and take her shopping to buy halal food. And she even came to the wedding of the chief executive for Upbeat 3 days after she arrived in our home. But to cut a long story short, she eventually got support from a really good solicitor who did an expert report on the vulnerability of women and girls in Pakistan. She was granted refugee status. My wife was the birthing partner for her and had the privilege of seeing her son born. And 10 years on, she's now living independently in Middlesbrough and working in a local school and doing really, really well. And one of the things to really encourage you about this young lady was she's a religious Muslim, but she once came to our local church and spoke in front of 200 people and to give thanks for the support she'd been given. And she even said publicly, Christian prayers get answered. So this is a woman that still she's a Muslim, but she recognized that there is some power in Christian prayer. And so who knows what will happen, what seeds have been sown in her life. But that's just one example of somebody that was really impacted because a hosting bed was available.
Yeah, well, thank you, Paul. That's an amazing story. And yeah, just to see how involved she was in your life and the life of her hosts, it's really encouraging. I've just noticed there's a question that's come in. That's how can people living in more rural areas where transport links for work or support services are poor help with hosting? I wonder if you had any wisdom on that.
That's a big challenge. It's not impossible. It can be done. I'll be honest that the majority of NACCOM projects who are working with people with no recourse tend to be looking for a host in more urban areas, but where transport links and where this can be support with transport costs are available, it can be done. So where I am on Teesside, we had people that were hosting on the edge of the North York Moors National Park, but we had pretty good public transport system here. Other charities such as Refugees at Home that are working with not just people seeking asylum, but newly granted refugees who have the right to work, they can be more flexible. And also Hope at Home, the national charity that works with victims of modern slavery and human trafficking, they are much more flexible in terms of more rural locations.
Okay, thank you, Paul. That's really helpful. And lastly, I just wanted to ask what excites you about Welcome Homes and what we're trying to do as Welcome Churches with this project. I wonder if you could just share.
Well, I think what excites me is NACCOM as a network was birthed as a Christian response, if you like, in terms of a Christian was gathering people together, and it was very small. And it's been really exciting to see not in the growth of the network I work with, but to see the wider church is still interested in the plight of the alien, the sojourner, the people that are not like us but are living amongst us, that God calls us to provide hospitality for. And you know, this is kingdom work. What you're doing is kingdom work, and it's really important. So for me, as a Christian working in what is a secular network, this excites me. I like, you know, I love having the opportunity to sort of engage with Christians at a local level to encourage and to help them to respond, to be equipped to respond. So what you're doing is fantastic, and it's great to be able to kind of partner with you on this journey. And if anybody wants, it has seeds of an idea for a local project, and you need particular help and guidance, then, you know, as I said, 2 of us on the team who do the same role understand the language of local churches, so we're able to kind of help you. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Paul. Yes, and Paul's the NACCOM website has just been posted on the chat, so do have a look at that, and do be in contact with Paul. Thank you so much, Paul, for your wisdom.
Pleasure.